For us tonight, Banfield with Brian Enton starts right now.
Hey everybody, I'm Brian Enton in for Ashleigh tonight. I hope you had a good holiday weekend. It's been a busy day for crime news. By now you've probably already heard that the big Alec Baldwin trial, it is set to start tomorrow. But we've got something for you tonight, a big part of the story that you probably have not heard, and it may actually change the way you think about what happened. Now look, we know that Baldwin was holding the gun when it went off on the set of Rust and killed cinematographer Halyna Hutchins. He faces, of course, the involuntary manslaughter charge. That's what this trial is all about. But there is a lot more to the story. What did Baldwin know about the conditions on the set? About the protocols that were not followed, about the budget issues and the safety positions that were cut? You are going to hear from the prop master armorer who originally had the job on Rust. He literally had his suitcase packed, but he backed out at the very last second, and he even sent a warning to the production team. And don't forget, I mean, look, it gets so much attention that Baldwin pulled the trigger and he was holding the gun. He says he didn't pull the trigger, by the way, which a lot of people say doesn't make sense. But Baldwin was not just the star actor holding the gun. He was a co-producer on the movie. He was a boss. Should he have heeded that prop master's warning? Could it have saved Halyna Hutchins' life? You're going to hear from the prop master himself about it all. We've got the exclusive interview. We sat down with him. He goes into detail. That's coming up in just a minute. Then imagine if your child was missing and the police said they were investigating, but they didn't communicate with you at all for weeks. You heard nothing. How do you think you would feel about that? That's the situation a mom in Illinois is in right now after her daughter mysteriously went missing in the Bahamas. Taylor Casey, you may be following the story. I've been following it very closely. She vanished from a Paradise Island, Bahamas yoga retreat almost 3 weeks ago. And her mom says the police in the Bahamas, they have gone totally silent. I mean, they've said zilch. They haven't even picked up the phone to call this family. Think about it. You'd think a detective might check in every couple of days, provide some kind of update, even if they don't know much. Maybe you'd think that they would get some kind of call from the embassy, the family, something. But Taylor's mom says she has heard absolutely nothing, and now she is asking why. And by the way, I want to show you tonight, there's a letter that she got from the yoga retreat this week that I found pretty startling. We're going to have that for you. And also, we've got one of the final videos taken of Taylor at the retreat. We've also got video now of her inside her tent. She was staying in a tent at that yoga retreat in the Bahamas. Look, this is a story that I just can't shake. I was in the Bahamas. Doesn't make sense. People don't just go missing from islands there. We're going to have Taylor's mom on. We're going to have her friend on. We've got that update and some new exclusive details coming up later in the show. Also, is Karen Reed really going to see the inside of a courtroom again after her mistrial? There is a bombshell court filing. Came out today by Reed's defense team. It is asking the judge to throw out the murder charge. The lawyers say the jury made up their mind and decided that she was not guilty of murder. You might be asking yourself, like, how does the defense know that? How do they know what the jury decide in that secret room when they were deliberating? Well, it's not uncommon for them to go out, seek out jurors. Sometimes the jurors even come to the defense team. They do an investigation, and the defense can get the scoop after the verdict or the mistrial in this case. Well, what does this all mean now, this new filing? Could they actually drop the murder charge? We're going to break it all down. That is coming up. But we want to begin tonight in Santa Fe, New Mexico, where Alec Baldwin is about to stand trial for the fatal shooting on the set of the movie Rust. On October 21st, 2021, you know the story by now. Baldwin, who was just the film's, not just the film star, but also a co-producer, was rehearsing a scene inside a church when he fired what he thought was a cold gun, loaded with blanks or no rounds at all. But we all know now he was wrong. And the film's cinematographer, Halyna Hutchins, was struck and killed. Director Joel Sousa was wounded. Take a look.
Are you doing okay?
No, I'm not, actually.
Okay. Yeah. Just leave that stuff on, sir. Yeah, leave them on right now. So I'm going to talk to my crime scene tech.
Okay, so clearly a live round should never have been in a prop gun, but Baldwin also insists that he never actually pulled the trigger. Here is what he said to ABC News.
Well, the trigger wasn't pulled. I didn't pull the trigger.
So you never pulled the trigger?
No. I would never point a gun at anyone and pull a trigger at them. Never. That was the training that I had. You don't point a gun at me and pull the trigger.
Still a lot of questions. How does the gun go off if he doesn't pull the trigger? Well, prosecutors say 5 live rounds were later found on the Rust set, a big no-no on these sets. And Baldwin, in his role as a producer, failed to require the mandatory safety checks. It also came out that just hours before the accident, a half dozen crew members, they walked off the set, protesting long hours and late paychecks. By all indications, the set was a mess. And now tonight, a seasoned Hollywood prop master who was approached to work on Rust says he turned it down at the last minute after spotting some major red flags. Was this movie a ticking time bomb from the beginning? We talked to the man who may have the answer to that question. Here is my exclusive interview with Neil Zaromsky.
I just wanted to do something really artistic and beautiful, resonant, memorable, that would stay with people for a long time. And this was that project, but for all the wrong reasons.
Neil W. Zaromsky is a veteran on movie sets, having spent 3 decades in Hollywood. So when his phone rang in 2021 about an opportunity to work as a prop master on the Western film Rust, starring Alec Baldwin, he listened.
They told me that it was a great story, a very taut, suspense-filled story, with a backdrop of New Mexico sunsets. And I thought to myself, I could already see the movie forming in my mind.
But after days of meetings, those feelings started to change.
We were talking in late September, definitely the second week of September, and they were talking about an October 6th start. So there literally was virtually no time.
10 days to prepare for a Western full of shooting scenes, a job that Zaromsky says usually requires 5 weeks minimum.
I felt that they were being extremely loose and rather cavalier with the, with cementing this position on the crew.
Zaromsky says he voiced those concerns, requesting a staff of 5 trained gunsmiths and armorers. He says they agreed, but right before he left for the airport, he received an email.
They had made the decision to reduce my staff to 3. And they let me know that, please be aware that this is a low-budget, ambitious production. At that point, I felt that our entire negotiation fell apart due to bad faith. The clothes were in the suitcase. This is how close I came.
He decided to decline the job and responded to the email with a warning.
And the only thing I would do in closing is just suggest that you not deter from what I have delineated here on how to do this job safely, how to do it right, and how to staff it properly. I didn't want them to have a calamity. I didn't want loss of life. I didn't want someone to die.
Weeks later, while on a different set, he heard the news. Cinematographer Helena Hutchins was killed in an accident on the Rust set, and Alec Baldwin was holding the gun.
I couldn't believe it. I really couldn't believe it. And I had to go throw up in the honey wagon. And I stayed in there for a little while. And I was really heartbroken.
Zaromsky knew of armorer Hannah Gutierrez-Reed, who was hired after he left the film, and is now serving prison time after being convicted of involuntary manslaughter in March.
I am sentencing you to 18 months of incarceration. You alone turned a safe weapon into a lethal weapon.
She was over her head from the moment she took the job.
Prosecutors called Gutierrez-Reed's conduct on set unprofessional and sloppy, alleging she didn't completely check the gun that was given to Baldwin to make sure it didn't contain live rounds. Footage and photos shared during her trial showed cast members walking around haphazardly with firearms, and Gutierrez-Reed's ammo cart in disarray.
If the cart looked like the cart that I saw in these photographs and images from the set, there would be a release of duty for the technicians who were managing that. And it screams inexperience. It screams, I don't care. It screams, I'm not very good at this job. It screams accident waiting to happen.
Sorry.
You're okay.
Sorry.
Just relax. Just relax.
I'm so scared.
You're all right. Just relax.
So here's the box that I got them out of.
Okay.
So I would never, in a million years, have a young person who was unseasoned, unskilled, and bare minimum credentials wrangle weapons on a major film with a major star.
Now that major star, Alec Baldwin, is about to have his day in court.
I take the gun out slowly. I turn, I cock the pistol. Bang! It goes up. She hits the ground.
He's also facing an involuntary manslaughter charge that could result in prison time. He has maintained his innocence, saying publicly that he did not pull the trigger. Zaromsky says he finds that hard to believe.
I believe that he did pull the trigger because it's a revolver, and in order for that bullet to come down and be struck by the firing pin, you have to pull the trigger. But a corollary to that is if Mr. Baldwin is a seasoned actor, he should have refused that from anyone other than the armorer.
And Zaromsky says, as the star actor and producer of the film, he believes Baldwin knew the staff was cutting corners and even knew about Zaromsky's reason for turning down the job.
He is a producer. He's an executive producer. He's the star of the movie. So regardless of whether he was a laissez-faire or a hands-off producer, he would have been advised of all of those personnel changes, and he was more than likely notified that I did not take the job as well. You know, many people have said, well, Neil, had you been there, you would have been thrown into the culture on the set, and there's no knowing whether it still would have happened with you there. I can unequivocally say it would have never happened had I been on that set.
All right, so Baldwin faces one count of involuntary manslaughter and could face up to 18 months in prison if convicted. But this is important. In a major ruling a day before jury selection today, the jury selection is supposed to start tomorrow. This big ruling comes down today. The judge threw out a big part of the prosecution's case. She decided that Baldwin's producer title, everything you just heard about that, all the responsibilities that went along with it are not relevant and will not be introduced at trial. It is big news, especially when you consider, again, everything that Neil just said about what was happening behind the scenes, and it appears that Baldwin knew about it. Joining me now is Alexandra Kazarian. She is a senior trial attorney at Garagos & Garagos. Alexandra, thank you for being with me. I mean, Neil broke it down. They broke all the protocols, he said, that are standard on a Hollywood set. There's a chain of custody protocol normally where the gun is handed to certain people. There's an armorer at the beginning of the scene that would hand the gun to the actor, and then there's a different person who would take the gun away right away and would be checking the gun constantly. None of that happened according to the investigation that we have been able to do, Alexandra. Why wouldn't the judge allow those details to come in? What do you make of this ruling today?
So the judge made it very clear in a ruling that there's a difference between Alec Baldwin, the producer, and Alec Baldwin, the actor. And that in the moment that this accident happened, Alec Baldwin was Alec Baldwin, the actor. And you've said it exactly the way that the prosecution wanted to present it. They all knew. They all knew. Well, the prosecution, up until today, had every opportunity to present evidence that Alec Baldwin himself knew. And after reviewing that evidence and those arguments, the judge decided that there was not evidence that implicated Alec Baldwin, the producer, while he was performing as Alec Baldwin, the actor. So it sounds to me like they did not make a clear and convincing argument to the judge that he actually was involved, that they had evidence that he knew, that he was told. And everything that senior armorist said was, it's obvious that he would have known. But in a criminal court, you need evidence that he did.
How big of a deal is it, I mean, in terms of it being a blow to the prosecution's case? Do you think this was a big part of it? Because obviously we focus on the gun and whether or not he pulled the trigger. But what led up to that, which you heard from Neil, and all the mistakes that were made, it seems like that would have been pretty pivotal to the prosecution's case here.
Oh, yeah. I think that having Alec Baldwin, the producer, on trial was exactly what they were hoping for. And implicating him in all of the decisions that went down the line was a huge part of their prosecution. If he is just Alec Baldwin, the actor who was handed a gun, then how are they going to prove that he knew what happened before he was given the gun? It's going to be very, very hard for them to prove that he had anything to do with it if the defense position is that he was just an EP by name, or that his duties had nothing to do with that part of preparing for the movie.
We saw Alec Baldwin do the ABC interview. He's done other interviews too. He really hasn't shied away from talking. Do you think that he will testify in court? I mean, if he was your client, would you urge him to get up on the stand?
So when it comes to clients, you can urge them to do whatever they want. You can urge them to do whatever you want. You can give them all the advice in the world. But if you have a client who is like Mr. Baldwin and who wants to get his story out, he has that right to remain silent, and it is his and his alone. So the judge will take time outside of the presence of the jury to ask him specifically, not his lawyer, but him, Mr. Baldwin, do you want to get on the stand? So as an attorney, all you can do is advise your client. I would always advise my client not to take the stand, because even if you're the best actor in the world, maybe even especially if you're the best actor in the world, that can be used against you. The jury could say, I can't tell if you're telling the truth because you're great at this. This is part of your job. So I would always caution a defendant not to take the stand, but it's always ultimately in their hands.
Yeah, and Alec Baldwin may be going into this now feeling very confident. I mean, again, this was a big win by all accounts for the defense, that all is going to stay out. Everything you just heard in terms of what he may have been involved in, knowing about this set just being a disaster waiting to happen, the jury is not likely going to get to hear. So he may go into this thinking, look, let me testify. I feel good about the way things are going. Alexandra Kazarian, thank you so much for joining us, helping us break it down. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, still to come. 19 days ago, Taylor Casey vanished from a yoga retreat in the Bahamas. Her family says they have stopped receiving regular updates from the police, and they think they may know why. Why would they just be cutting off the family? After the break, I'll be joined by Taylor's mother and friend. They're going to share a brand new exclusive video. We've got video inside the retreat, video inside the tent where Taylor was staying in the Bahamas. All the new information's coming up after this. Is Taylor Casey. Her family has been desperately searching for her for almost 3 weeks now. It's a search that they say they've done largely alone. In just a moment, I'll be joined by Taylor's mom and best friend for an exclusive interview. I'll ask them why they believe the police have not prioritized Taylor's case. But first, I want to give you some background on the case. Taylor was last seen in the Bahamas. It was June 19th. She was attending a yoga retreat when she just vanished. And this is some new video there of where the retreat takes place on Paradise Island. We just received this video. It's Taylor at what they call Sivananda Ashram Yoga Retreat. She was introducing herself to other students. Take a look.
My name is Taylor. I'm from Chicago. Let's see. I'm here for connection, self-acceptance, and deepening my spiritual practice.
Apparently excited to be there and then just vanished. The retreat offers various levels of accommodation, including a private suite for about $500, a shared suite for $200, and a tent option for $100 or less. And Taylor was actually staying in this tent that you see here. We have video of her. Family got this video. It's right there at the ashram near the beach. You can see all of her things were still there for the most part when she disappeared. After Taylor went missing, her family went to the Bahamas to help with the search. They've said that they did not get a lot of help from local police or even from the ashram staff. They left very, very disappointed and very, very sad. The retreat center denied that in an email to the family. We've got a copy of it here. It's quite a long read, but I do want to share some of the highlights. It says the implication that the ashram failed to act or was silent is patently false. When we discovered that Taylor was no longer on the grounds, we notified the police. We have been cooperating with the police, U.S. Embassy, and the FBI. A full investigation was done immediately by the police of the grounds and surrounding areas, including a scene. There was a dog, divers, and drones. Our guests and staff were questioned by the police and others at the ashram. The vague implication that the ashram staff were not forthcoming with Taylor's family or were told what to say is false. And the ashram even asked the family for a retraction. Last week, Taylor's phone was found in the ocean near this dock that you see here. Police in Chicago, where Taylor lives, they have issued a missing persons alert earlier this week. But again, she really just disappeared in the Bahamas, and there has not been much of an explanation in weeks. I'm joined now by Taylor's best friend, Emily Williams, and also Taylor's mom, Colette Seymour. Thank you both for being with me again, Emily and Colette. I want to start with you. I guess I had just assumed, Colette, that all this time, you were getting updates from the police in the Bahamas, that even if they didn't have much, that they were at least staying in touch with you every day, every other day. When is the last time that you spoke with them?
I haven't spoke with them since I returned home from the Bahamas, and that's one of my concerns. Why haven't I heard from them? I've been home over a week and a half and haven't heard not one word from them.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever heard of such a thing. I would normally with these cases we cover in the U.S., the detective would, again, at least even if they don't have an update, be reaching out, trying to provide some comfort. I mean, do you have any idea why, Colette, why they would suddenly just almost be ghosting you?
Well, my idea is really saddens me. When I think about it, I'm like, why wouldn't I hear from them? This is my child. I feel like my child had 2 strikes against her when she went over there to that yoga retreat. And one was that she's Black, and the other is that she's transgender. And that disturbs me.
Did you get a feeling that you weren't being taken seriously, or that the case wasn't being respectfully handled while you were there?
Yes, I got that feeling most of the time. When we're in a room with 18 corporals, lieutenants, superintendents, just a lot of people, and just a lot of people to deal with and talk to. I didn't understand why does it take these many people? I'm here to find out what happened to my child. My child is missing. Get on the case.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear you say that, because when I was there and they had the press conference, the police made a point of saying that you seemed pleased with their investigation.
And I could see how they're saying that, because my mother taught me manners to say please and thank you. And yes, I was saying to them, thank you for what you're doing, and please, and saying please. I was very polite. They took if it's a mistake if they took my politeness for being pleased. I was not pleased at all with the investigation.
Yeah, and I can understand why. Emily, the ashram's email to the family, which we read part of it, says the facts gathered by the police and the family indicate Taylor left voluntarily with the intent to return. Is there any reason that you can come up with that she would have I would have left voluntarily? And I've been there, so I'm envisioning it. I mean, it's not an easy place to just leave. It's an island, so it's hard to imagine how she would even do that. But I mean, what do you make of the ashram, coming up with that conclusion?
In my opinion, that's a really convenient story for them. I mean, let's be real. Taylor spent thousands of dollars to be there. She wanted the skills and the peace and the wellness offered by the teacher training. For them to say that the evidence points to Taylor having left of her own volition, I think they want us to accept that so that they can just turn their hands up and go about business as usual. But everything that we've been told does not point to Taylor having left of her own volition.
What do you make, Colette, of the way the ashram has been responding? Because I've interviewed you several times now. I mean, you haven't specifically said that you think the ashram is responsible for anything in terms of her disappearance, but just that they weren't quick enough to act, there weren't missing posters, but they went as far as to claim defamation based on some of your interviews, which isn't something I've ever really seen happen before during an active missing case like this. I mean, what did you make of the response, Colette?
It's not true. It's not defamation. It's just what they didn't do. I mean, my child had been missing 5 days before they even put up a flyer with Taylor missing on that resort, and they didn't inform the other classmates, the students, that Taylor was missing. I don't understand that. When someone goes missing, everywhere else I've seen, it's reported everywhere and instantly. And I think I read in one of them reports that they reported my child missing in the afternoon. No, it was not in the afternoon because they told me to wait till after dinner time. And it wasn't until 8:30, 9 o'clock that they even went to the Royal Bahamas police force.
Emily, what do you think needs to happen now? I mean, Colette's not getting any updates from the police. The embassy said that they were assisting, I think, initially. I mean, how does this move forward?
Well, number one, I don't know how the embassy could co-sign this investigation. We've said from the very beginning that the Royal Bahamas Police Force has said that they were working with the FBI, but we have been told multiple times that they are not working with the FBI. Rather, the legal attaché at the embassy has observer status to the investigation, that the Royal Bahamian Police Force needs to invite the FBI to actually investigation. And that's what needs to happen. And that's why we're calling on the U.S. government to lean on the State Department so that they can encourage the Royal Bahamian Police Force to actually invite the FBI so that there is a real investigation, so that we can find out what happened to Taylor and so that we can find Taylor and so that Taylor can come home to us.
Yeah, and I mean, this is an American missing in the Bahamas, a place that a lot of Americans go to visit and think that they feel safe. So obviously it needs to be investigated. Colette and Emily, we will, of course, continue to stay on it. You see the map there. That's Paradise Island, just that little sliver on the top. Thank you so much for coming on again tonight. We really appreciate it. We hope we get to talk to you with some, positive news at some point.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, still to come tonight, Karen Reed's lawyers say drop the charges, and they say jurors were unanimous on acquitting her of murder. Just think about that. They say behind the scenes, the jurors wanted to acquit Reed on the murder charges. We didn't know that before today. What does it all mean, considering the prosecutors are promising to put her back before the judge after the mistrial? Plenty of true crime fanatics, they've been buzzing about it. We've got our guest coming up. You see him right there, Pascal Show. He's going to be with us right after the break. Defense lawyers will tell you that what happened to Karen Reed is the next best thing to the words not guilty, a mistrial. That was the stunning news 1 week ago that Karen Reed's jury was stuck, never to be unstuck on the list of charges filed against her, strongest of which was second-degree murder in the death of her boyfriend, John O'Keefe. That was 2 Januaries ago now. Well, Karen Reed and her attorneys were all smiles and hugs. You see there, it was a crazy day after the mistrial was announced, but Reed is not technically off the hook. The Commonwealth of Massachusetts has every right to put Karen Reed on trial again, and they say they absolutely will be doing that. But if Reed's attorneys get their way, they will not be arguing about murder. Today, Reed's lawyers moved to throw out second-degree murder charges, as well as the charge of leaving the scene of injury and death. The defense is claiming double jeopardy, insisting that the jury did agree on whether Karen Reed committed second-degree murder, and they decided not guilty. That's new. That's big news. They did some kind of investigation, heard from the jurors, and they've come to the conclusion that they voted not guilty. The challenge now will be, and it's a big challenge, convincing a judge to throw out that murder charge. I want to bring in Pascal Beaubuff. We're big fans of his true crime podcast, The Pascal Show. He's been closely following the Karen Reed case from the beginning. All right. Pascal, what did you make of this today? I mean, I didn't quite see it coming. And the fact that the defense was able to get this insider information and now says that they wanted that they were going to vote not guilty on the murder charge. Were you surprised?
Honestly, I mean, I think everybody was surprised. I mean, it stopped the whole world. Any person that's been following this case is appalled, surprised, or very disappointed. Whichever way they're looking at it, everyone's now just at the edge of their seat going, how is the defense going to prove without a shadow of a doubt that the jury was indeed unanimous on 2 charges, 2 out of the 3? It's a big hill to climb, Brian. It's a very big hill to climb.
This has been one of those cases, Pascal, where people are so fired up on social media. I mean, you've been in the middle of some of it. How do you think people are going to react to a new trial here? I mean, like, are people on the edge of their seat? Are they wanting a new trial? Do they just want it to get tossed out? What's your sense?
Well, let me ask you this, Brian. Do you want another trial? Are you ready for another trial? No, in all seriousness, I think everybody just wanted, I think a lot of people were really disappointed with the mistrial. I think a lot of people wanted to just be either guilty or not guilty on all 3 and just be able to move on with their lives and let her have justice, or, let her be exonerated, or let her, receive justice. So, yeah, I think for it to go to do another retrial or another trial like this all over again, I don't know, it's going to be very, very tough, I think, for a lot of people that are supporters and that have been watching this trial since a couple months ago.
You've been following all the ins and outs. I mean, look, I get where the defense is going with this, and it's very interesting that they were able to get that insider information from the jurors. But do you think a judge would actually throw out the murder charge? I mean, is there a real possibility of that based on what you've been hearing?
I have to say, I wonder how they would do it. How would they be able to prove that there was a unanimous decision, right? A unanimous verdict on these 2 counts. Are they going to bring the jurors back in again and recount or something? I just don't know what the procedure is. So I'm kind of sitting at the edge of my seat, like I said before, and just seeing what the courts are really going to do next here, because it could be anything right now, Brian.
There was some other news today, Pascal. The state trooper Michael Proctor testified. Remember all the drama with him. The new news today with him is he was suspended without pay. We knew that he was getting suspended. We didn't necessarily know the full without pay part of the story. It is kind of interesting in all of this. He's the one who's actually suffered the most punishment so far.
Yeah. He really did show, and it did show that he was very, very corrupt.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's coming for him. It's not there enough, though. I mean, yes, he's been suspended without pay as of late, but I want to hear him getting resigned or him stepping down, something of that sort. A suspension without pay is not good enough for me, in my personal opinion. But as far as him getting the worst of it all, I think that justice will come. Truth and transparency will come to whoever did this to John O'Keefe, and hopefully it comes in the very, very near future.
What does your audience think, though? Because you're someone who has an interesting pulse on what's going on, because you're so involved with the people following it all. I mean, what do they think?
Well, I got to be honest. My audience is pretty straight down the middle. And it's been bad. I mean, some people are it's all very passionate people, right? Everybody's very, very emotional about this particular case. Either it's corruption or it's she did this thing. It's just so split down the middle right now. It's interesting, but they've been playing it pretty nice with each other, with both sides. They've been agreeing to disagree, for lack of a better term. I know outside of my little internet bubble, it gets a little bit more volatile, filled with vitriol and whatnot.
Yeah,
it does get a little crazy, but hopefully it starts to kind of calm down here in the very near future.
Well, you do a good job, Pascal, keeping everybody calm and cool. You're a cool guy. I always loved your show. And then I got to meet you in person. We were both at a conference in Orlando. There you were. You bought me a drink, so I feel like
we had a great time.
You're my buddy now. So I owe you a drink next time. And thank you for coming on tonight.
Thank you, brother.
Okay,
Talk to you soon.
It. All right, still to come, a man locked up for life for murdering his wife almost 40 years ago, says the only evidence against him is now junk science. And the scientist who testified against him now even agrees. But can he ever get a court to agree that bite marks alone cannot link a suspect to a crime? And why is he still in jail despite all of this new information and new science? We're going to talk about it next.
Achieve incredible changes to their weight, their digestion, even their skin.
And for a limited time, you can try BioComplete 3 risk-free for 90 days. Go to guthealthsecret.com.
All right, this is a strange one. The only evidence connecting Charles McCrory to the death of his wife, Julianne Bonds, way back in 1985, was a supposed bite mark on her right shoulder that an expert testified was his. That was it. That was all the evidence. There was evidence McCoy didn't do it, such as hair in the victim's hand that did not belong to him and someone else's footprint outside a window. But in the end, a jury convicted him anyway. Now, almost 40 years later, so-called bite mark analysis is pretty much considered junk science. They call it junk now. Even the expert who testified for the state in McCrory's trial came back decades later to recant the testimony totally. McCrory's lawyers took his case all the way to the Supreme Court, which announced last week that it will not hear his appeal. So McCrory's conviction and life sentence in an Alabama prison both stand. Now, twice over the years, I found this to be so interesting. He was offered his freedom if he would only admit his guilt. And both times he said no, putting his faith in the courts. In her dissent, Justice Sonia Sotomayor said the courts are letting Charles McCrory down. She writes, this petition raises difficult questions about the adequacy of